Hi, this is Mashnu, and let's continue now this series on how to attack. This is another example from the book that I'm reading, Art of Attack in Chess, and I found this so interesting. The game was played in 1939 in Amsterdam by the world champion Max Euwe, the only Dutch world champion in chess history, and against Salo Floor, Grandmaster. And what's happening here is actually that we see that the fianchetto bishop that normally is on g7 is now on f8, and white has entered with his bishop to this dark square f6, where normally we see a black knight. This means that white's ideas are to make use of these dark squares, but the bishop on f8 is defending g7 and h6. Now if this bishop would not be there, then it would be easy for white. Queen f4, queen h6, and checkmate on g7, or queen e3, and then the same idea. Let's have a look at possible defenses of black. One idea is that the queen can be brought to the defense to h5. Another idea is that a maneuver h6, king h7 can be played to defend. And of course bishop to g7 is also possible. So these are general defensive ideas. But of course this bishop on f8 is there. So these dark squares are defended now. What white did here in this position is that he brought more pieces into the attack, making use of the fact that this bishop on f8 may not leave this short diagonal f8 h6. White played here rook to c5. So what he's doing is cutting off the possible defense of the queen. So the queen will be left out of the defenses. And of course black cannot take on c5, because if bishop takes c5, d takes c5, and there is this double threat, taking the bishop with the rook and the mating maneuver of the white queen. So here black played queen takes a2, and white brought the rook from c5 to h5. Now if we look at the amount of pieces attacking and the number of pieces defending, we see that white is overpowering black's defenses. This queen on a2 is totally out of play. So we could say that on this area, the king side, white is a queen up. Now this is an important moment in the game, because there are many, let's say there are different possible defenses here, and one of them is e5, and that's what was played in the game to defend the square h3. But let's have a look at that later. First, a few other possibilities. The most simple to look at first is what if the rook is taken. So if g takes h file, then the g file is opened. So then there is a mating to queen g3, and then on g7 checkmate. So this rook cannot be taken. Another idea would be to play bishop to g7, because the threat of white is to bring the queen to h3 and threaten to take here on h7, followed by a mate on h8. So bishop to g7 attacks the bishop on f6, so then queen h3 is of course not possible, because then the bishop is taken. So that means that here white would take on g7 first, and after king takes g7, now white has a beautiful way of finishing the game. Maybe you would like to do a little tactic exercise. Pause the video and see if you can find it. the continuation would be rook takes h7. After king takes h7, queen takes f7 check. King to h6, and now rook d3, a rook lift, and then there is no defense for black against this threat of rook h3 followed by f4 checkmate. So that's the possible continuation, and this is why this defense bishop g7 fails. Now another idea that I mentioned in the starting of the video is the maneuver h3, h6 and king to h7. Well, in this case, in the book, Vukovic mentions a strong move e5 here. With e5, not only this bishop is defended, but also this diagonal is being cut. So then if king goes to h7, white can simply play queen to e3, attacking h6. If queen takes b2, for example, there is nothing better for black. Rook to d3, and now there is no defense against the pressure here on h6. White is threatening now queen takes h6, bishop takes h6, rook takes h6. If king to g8, then rook h8 mate, and if king takes the rook, then rook h3 checkmate, and there is no defense here. So also this idea of h6 and king to h7 was not sufficient. Let's have a look at the rest of the game now. e5 was played, guard